Welcome, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. Welcome once again to the Chelsea Roar, the Chelsea podcast by the fans for you, the fans. I am your host, as always, Ian Kelly, and joining me today is a familiar face that you'll remember. Yes, he is a Red man. Yes, he is a Liverpool man. Shout abuse at him if you want. He can take it, but he also has a little bit of knowledge up there when it comes to these things. And the subjects in particular that we have for you today will, of course, be Chelsea. Actually, let me rephrase that. Charity FC strike again, and of course, the Boehly era cometh. But Niall is, of course, joining me once again today, just to do a little bit of a match review and to talk a little bit about Todd Boehly. If none of you have actually seen the piece that I shared on Twitter, which of course is at the Chelsea Roar, you'll see Niall done a nice little 19-minute video there on Saturday morning and breaking down the history of Todd Boehly. More so Todd Boehly rather than Clearlake or anything like that, but the history of Todd Boehly and his list of accolades and what he's all about and who he's about. If you haven't seen it, we're going to go through it again today with Niall. But I thought it was a great piece. And Niall, of course, if any of you don't know, runs a very, very successful podcast called The Upper Tier, where there's absolutely content dropping on the daily. It's talk sport without the bullshit by a Liverpool fan. In fact, there's less Liverpool fandom on that show than there is on talk sport. So
it's talk sport without Gabby Bonlahar, without Trevor St. Clair, a little sprinkling of Martin Keown, but it's all good.
Do me a favour. Martin's actually all right. Simon Jordan's where it's at. Big Soy, he's rooting for us. Love listening to Simon Jordan. But Niall, of course, you're at the upper underscore tier on Twitter.
At the upper tier, yeah.
There you go. See, I always get it wrong. I was trying today. I tried my best, though. And of course, you run the Shankly sessions, of course.
Shankly sessions, yeah.
A Liverpool podcast as well, which nobody on here is probably going to ever watch. But there you go.
They'll be watching it this week.
Exactly. Why don't? Do you know what we'll do? We'll tell them at the end what we have in store. We don't want to give everything away. But no, as you know, Niall is my right-hand man. Of course, they're across all platforms, Twitter, Gmail, and all that. Niall will give all the handles away at the end. But let's get into it. Charity FC strike again, and I don't know why we were so charitable on Saturday, because Wolves didn't really need the charity because they've been on the beach for the last 6 to 7 weeks anyway. But Chelsea being Chelsea, it is what it is. I suppose the story of the day, which we will get into a little bit later on, was that the new owners, in principle, in theory, nothing's finalised yet, but let's be fair, it's done. We're there today. They were in King Roman's box there. Todd looking very comfortable with the foot up and the old aviator shades on, blowing the whistles, the old fingers in the mouth whistle, looking very American, looking very cool, almost like he could have been a brother of Bret the Hitman Hart or something, couldn't he? He had that look.
Yeah, absolutely.
The hair kind of short down.
Letting the mascot out here.
Yeah. But yeah, so the lineup changed it up a little bit. Christian Pulisic coming in for I suppose you would say Mason Mount, and then Romelu Lukaku.
Maybe at the request of Todd Boehly.
Maybe
because he was there.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Thomas, we love you, but don't forget to put that American boy in.
Yeah, number 10 is gonna be our moneymaker, don't forget. And then of course big Romelu Lukaku coming in for Kai Havertz. Midfield changes, obviously Jorginho and Kante were both out, so they went with Kovacic, who was back thankfully, along with the I would say the inform Ruben Loftus-Cheek in his preferred central midfield role. Went with Reece James at wing back, and then of course you had Azpilicueta, Thiago Silva, Antonio Rudiger, and Marcus Alonso, and Mendy in goal. So the big talking point, I suppose, at the start of the game was Romelu Lukaku starting. Pulisic had kind of done bits anyway previously, but Romelu started. Obviously, Koi, a well-deserved rest as well, I would say. Strange that there was no Ziyech starting. I thought in this game, in terms of that's kind of his bread and butter, isn't it? A game against Wolves, who probably won't be doing much pressing on you. Not all the time. Going into it, you wouldn't have thought that they'd have kind of been looking for a press game, more so a counter-attack game, which is exactly what happened. And you would have thought, because of the little brotherhood or bond that Ziyech and Lukaku have, that he may have been starting. But look, I'm happy with the front line. But let's get into it. Timo Werner, VAR strikes again on Timo. I think we've all seen that. A goal disallowed for a supposed push, which wasn't. It was a fair shoulder. I think everyone in football realised that the goal was ridiculously ruled out by VAR. I think there's just... Timo's done something in a past life to whoever's sitting up in VAR. They just...
I think the best bit of it was that the one that Todd reacted to on the camera went to him, was it?
Yep.
Was that the one where they called VAR and the goal was disallowed, was it? And then they went to Todd Boehly and he jumped up over and said, what the fuck is this VAR kind of thing? And all, you know,
he was giving it,
because he was so excited about them scoring, you know, and then all of a sudden it was getting chalked off, you know what I mean? And I just thought, like, that was just hilarious. It's good to see there's a bit of spirit about him.
What the fuck is this, man?
Yeah, and he had the clipboard and the pen and the whole lot and all, and he was taking notes. And I'm not sure which guy was it. Bruce Buck was sitting beside him for a while.
Bruce Buck was beside him, and then
for a while, and then some other lad was there.
Yeah,
one of his own men, I think.
It's the other LA Dodgers owner, because there's two of them, Mark Walter, and then I think your man Hans Borgvist was there somewhere. And then there was some other guy in a red t-shirt that nobody seems to have been able to find out who he is.
Yeah, but it was like Bruce Buck was sitting there introducing them to soccer. You know, that kind of way. It was an interesting dynamic, but it was funny to see him being so invested in it and jumping up and being so excited and stuff like that. Not dissimilar to Roman. You see the way Roman reacts when things like that happen as well. So,
but a little bit more hip than Roman. You know what I mean? He kind of looks cool, like he looks like the cool uncle or something. You know what I mean? Like he's got that nice hair, all quick, very American. He's got the aviators on, and he took the aviators off a few times, and he had, as I said, that whistle going, and he was getting very emotionally invested into it. But we'll get it.
He had the shirt. He had the shirt and the chain I was on him as well. The shirt tucked in. So
telling you, man,
you could smell the wealth.
Definitely, those chinos were worth more than your house. To steal a Ric Flair line. So this is the way we're gonna go. Romelu Lukaku showed up. I think there was a moment about 30 minutes in, because before that we were looking, but it looked like we were getting the same Romelu, just looking lethargic and kind of pointing here and pointing there, anywhere but himself. But then he had that kind of Drogba-esque ball with his back to goal, and he turned and hit it with his right, and it was a good save. In fairness, it wasn't, you know, but it was a moment where you thought, oh, okay, he looks to have a bit something about him. He kind of grew into it a little bit more. It was a stale first half, to be fair. Big news as well: Marcos Alonso taken off at halftime for Seoul. Apparently, a fallout in the dressing room with Marcos Alonso and Tuchel. This Marcos Alonso lad, just every other year, seems to have a fallout with someone. I mean, for a lad who takes as much abuse as he does, he must have some attitude. I don't know what it is that goes on with him. I think he gets into a little bit of form, and then he forgets his place. I don't know, but this is a couple of different managers now that have had fallouts with him. And
well, there's fair to say there's history between himself and Tuchel, isn't there? Because
Tuchel
wasn't long in the door either as well, when he absolutely fucking tore strips off him in a game, remember? And berated him and like went on for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
and it's a strange one, because he's actually been in a bit of form. He was kind of starting to win some fans back over. Some people are just fans of him anyway. I get it. For me, he's hit and miss. I think he probably should have been sold a while ago, and it should have been a decent backup for Chilwell. But he's done a job, to be fair, over the last few games. Not consistently since Chilwell been injured. What a miss, by the way, Chilwell. But yeah, so Romelu obviously shows up. He wins the penalty. Great work, actually bullying defenders again. Wins a penalty. What a stupid lash out. What a stupid kick out. Like, it was actually, I'm glad we got it, but my God, it was a bit ridiculous. Steps up himself. Happy, fair play. I'll always say that, especially with the form that he's not in. and then possibly the lack of confidence that could be perceived. But he looked like a man that had something to prove. He steps up, and then literally a couple of minutes later, Pulisic puts him in, and he scores a fantastic finish on his weaker peg into the bottom corner. And you think, wow, Pulisic I thought was fantastic on Saturday. Timo Werner, good Lord, you're looking. He nearly has a hat trick if Timo just literally squares it to him. Timo hits it to, I don't know, he was aiming for the corner flag or something. Just like the shot he had where he was trying to hit it into the top corner and went out for a throw in, bit of a John O'Shea.
I noticed the other one as well. Remember the one where he went to I think I don't think he went for a shot. I think he went across it, but it kind of went out. And I just remember the camera going to Lukaku, and Lukaku was free, I think, in the box. And Lukaku just gave him that death stare. That absolute death stare. He didn't even say anything. He didn't wave his hands. He just stared at him. And I was thinking, good Lord.
Not a man you really want staring at you like that.
No, and he's not the kind of man either you'd run into the box and take a ball off for a penalty either, No. If he wants to take it, you just go ahead, Ron.
Go on. But so 2-0 up. I don't want to do a full match review on it. I've kind of headlined these. We all know the result. I've kind of headlined these as Romelu Lukaku showed up, so that's enticing, especially going into Leeds and into the FA Cup final. Might give Klopp something different to think about if that's a possibility, Aspi, another frustrating day, I wrote. Seems to really be playing in his own head at the moment. Not nice to see. He seems to be very angry all the time, and he's angry at himself. You know that he's that kind of professional, that he's angry at himself. So much so that Tuchel actually changed Reece and him around at halftime and put Reece in the right centre back because Azpilicueta kept stepping up out of position. It's like he wants to make up for errors that he's made recently and wants to be the guy to score the goal and stuff. And it's like, but then leaving us exposed. So it was kind of a smart tinkering there, I think, of the back line by having Aspi right. Let him be out on the far right, the wide right, and we'll have Reece there to have the pace, I suppose, to cover back. And Reece is probably better on the ball too. Actually, there's no probably about it. He is. Is Rudy's head already left the club? I think so. I think when you look at players that have made these big kind of made these big moves away from the club, they're afraid of getting injured, and you don't know what the thoughts in their head are. It looks to me like Rudy isn't the same Rudy that we've had maybe 2 months ago. It was probably the last time we read. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe a month ago, but since it's come out anyway that he's going to Madrid, it's just been a little bit. I don't know. There's something missing.
Well, it's probably that coupled with a cup final as well. I think when you reach a cup final, and especially the FA Cup final, I find once you get to the final of it, it seems that it's a long way to get to it. You know that the cup final seems miles away from when you win your semi-final. And I'm sure, obviously, with him leaving and stuff like that, I'm sure he'd like to leave with a cup final under his arm and stuff like that. Yeah. And I just think across the board at the moment, and even with Tuchel, I think if you go back a couple of weeks ago, your top 4 finish and top 3rd place was kind of set. And I think what happens is you've tried to baby your way, because you've picked up a couple of niggles on the way with Kovacic and stuff like that, which is he's a big player for you and stuff like that.
And Kante, of course.
And Kante as well. And I think what you've tried to do is you've tried to baby your way to the final. Mm-hmm. So you can arrive at the final with a decent squad that's intact for that day, And I see it and I understand it. The problem is, you're now looking over your shoulder at Arsenal and stuff like that, and it's not as comfortable as it was. And I don't think for a minute you'll drop out of the top 4, but it's not as comfortable as it was. And I think some of those guys are looking at that and going, I don't know what it is. Maybe they're looking, they've one eye on the cup final or stuff like that. And Wolves doesn't really get their juices flowing, if you like, whereas big day out at Wembley against Liverpool, those guys will feel like they owe Liverpool one from the Carabao Cup and stuff like that. Yeah. And maybe that's their thinking, I would think.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. And I don't want to be too harsh on Rudy either, because I don't want to be one of those kind of fans that kind of just, lambasts him and says, look, get out of our club. You've done this, you've done, I don't want to give him the Courtois treatment just yet. You know what I mean?
Well, he's a monster of a player as well. So I don't think of all the players you would look at there, you wouldn't think of him as being a guy who's checked out or a guy who's worried about whether he may get injured going into his Real deal or something like that, or going into his Real situation. I think with him, he's a monster of a man. He goes out onto the pitch and he's gung ho from start to finish. Yeah. He gets stuck in, he never shirks a tackle and stuff like that. And I wouldn't expect that to change. I suppose the thing that you've noticed over the last few weeks with Chelsea at times is they've been really, really good and in control for 70 minutes of a game.
Yeah. It's
and really, really solid and look like they're coasting. And then it's just that last 20 minutes. I don't know whether it's mental fatigue, all that stuff that's built up in them with everything that's gone on all year. And suddenly you just get that kind of semi sort of meltdown. And you know what happens with these teams, especially the likes of Wolves and stuff like that. If you give them this and they get the bit between their teeth, all of a sudden it becomes a very different game. And you guys look and go, oh shit, hang on a minute here. And all of a sudden everyone gets nervous, and that's when things go wrong.
I think I'm of the belief that this squad has done this under too many managers now for it to be just blamed on the board situation. And look, Chilwell absolutely has been a big miss. Reece James out on the right-hand side is a big miss. At the start of the year, we were absolutely steamrolling teams because that system was tailor-made for them to take so many other players out of the game. We saw, the game, that great game, which was, what was it, 0-0? Or was it 1-1? Sorry. Yeah, 1-1 at Anfield. Like, you guys saw it even when we had 10 men. We were a different animal, you know what I mean? I just think there's a certain mentality within this group, and I don't want to just start picking names out of the hat now, but most Chelsea fans know who they are. Their mentality is good for a couple of games, or it's good in a cup run, but not for a Premier League season. And I think that's where we're going to get on to later, where it's time now to,
Yeah, well, I mean, the club has been turned upside down on its head basically for the last, say, since Christmas or whatever, or since January. You know what I mean? We could have never envisaged what was going to happen to Chelsea Football Club, as we said, about the far-reaching consequences of the invasion of Ukraine and stuff like that. But also in the dressing room there with the Lukaku situation, and I'm sure the dressing room has become a bit toxic, and there's little cliques in there and stuff like that. Like, you have the Chelsea boys in there, like Mount and Reece and guys like that as well. They're looking at Lukaku going, you're coming in here, you're probably on 300 bags a week, you came in on 100 million, you're doing interviews, you don't give a shit, why would we give a shit? And you've seen it on the pitch at times when they've had an opportunity to play him in, they've taken the other decision, they've gone the other way and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's been going on. It's visible on the pitch and you can see it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, even as you said the other day, Alonso went in at half time, had a fucking pop off Tuchel, next thing you're hooked. You know what I mean? So there's a toxicity in there as well that's probably built up. 100%. And it's probably built up not because of players, but over a level of frustration at how this season has gone. European champions, world club champions, world champions. You should have been kicked on. You should have been heavily in a title race. You should be, domestic cups. We both got to the finals. You should have probably done better in the Champions League. You were so unlucky with the first leg. Lots of stuff like that going on. It just hasn't gone the way it should have gone, and it's frustration. And a lot of that frustration has been caused by external factors. We know that Tuchel as well was going through a divorce. There was so much shit going on.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? And 100%. It's just, and I know people will turn around and go, yeah, these are professional players that paid hundreds of thousands of pounds. And look, they're humans. It'll affect them. You know what I mean? A week ago you didn't have an owner. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? You can't legislate for that and stuff like that. And no matter what people say, it definitely affected it, because up till Christmas, you guys were unbelievable. Reece James, unbelievable. Chilwell, unbelievable. Chilwell. I still stress that. He was a massive loss. He was scoring. He was assisting. He was killing teams out there on that wing. And when you lost him, that was massive. Massive.
Yeah, no, I concur with that. I really would. I suppose the final three for the game, I wrote this one. Pulisic stands up. Hey Todd.
Yeah,
I'm the American Beckham. I'm the LeBron of American soccer. So he's definitely, he's one of those players. We've actually had this conversation, didn't we, last year as well, about Pulisic. He, a lot like in American playoff situations, when we see it in the NFL or in the NHL, We have those clutch players that step up when it matters, that at the start of the season, all's forgotten if they didn't have form. He's one of those guys that just stands up near the end, doesn't he? And kind of, and that's where I think the jury's out now, where he needs, like, he's at that age now, 23, 24, where he needs a consistent season next year of, you know, continue. Because, like, we've heard Klopp talk about him as well. Obviously, Klopp knew him from Dortmund and said the potential in the boy is fantastic. If he could just keep those injuries in check, and look, it's easy to say, keep your injuries in check, mate. You don't decide to pull a hammy or have an ankle problem, or, you know, it's just, unfortunately, as we've seen with players over the years, like Michael Owen and, you know, players like that who really are kind of pace-driven players. Torres is a perfect example for both of us. When they lose, if you lose that little bit of pace, or you're kind of playing with that fear of where's that next injury going to come from, you're already, again, it goes back to that human element that you mentioned about they are human, you know what I mean? That's in the back of your mind. So you need that kind of, I suppose you need your manager to kind of nurse you through it correctly, and obviously your backroom staff. Yeah. So I think Tuchel's doing a good job here on Pulisic, isn't he, in terms of just getting him back and not just overusing him.
I think he is, and I think, as you said already, he tends to show up and be that April, May guy.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
that just kind of like, it's like his 2 months, say 4 months of the whole season, he justifies his contract.
Yes,
you know, that kind of way. Yeah. He's like, and I think the problem therefore, he must frustrate the hell out of a coach, because everyone knows how good he can be. Like, he could be world class on the day and turn teams inside out. But as you said, it's just the management of those injuries. And it'd be interesting to go back and look at the injuries he's had and see how avoidable they could be. And I think what happens is, once that stability sits into the club and everything settles down with the takeover and all that kind of stuff, and you've got to have the ultimate sports science stuff available to you, obviously with the LA Dodgers and with Boehly and all this, I'm sure they're unbelievable at the leading edge of that. And I think what happens is, you could do like what we did this year with Matip and what we did with Keita and players like that, and Thiago. You know, we've been very careful with them. Now, they have played and they've put in mileage, but he's been very clever in the way when he's looked at the sports science side of it, he's turned around and goes, yeah, he needs a day out this time. He needs a day out this time. And they just know when to pick it out. He needs a different training program. He needs to do this training today, not this training with the team. And they've just been really brilliant at doing it. And it's paid dividends for us this year. And for you next year.
Because you were basically like flip reverse Chelsea and Liverpool. Yeah. This was used last year. Yeah.
100%. We the problems we had with Keita, Thiago obviously got injured, and then he was getting niggles. You know, we were picking up those kind of niggly things. Matip is a prime example. Look at Matip, absolute world-class central defender, but we just could never get him on the pitch for any sort of consistency. But now we brought in Konate so we can rotate them out. He can get his rest when he needs it. He does different training at times to what the team is doing and stuff like that. And you figure out a different way, because even though they're part of the team, they're all individuals, different science within their bodies, different mechanisms in the way they work, different positions on the pitch and all that kind of stuff. And I think Chelsea will go down that road as well. And I think the key thing is, you need a guy like Christian Pulisic stepping up and playing at least 70% of your season. Yeah. Otherwise, you have to look, because what happens is then you're bringing in a body to cover that if that doesn't happen. Well, and that's not the game you want to be in.
That's it. Because, I mean, if you're looking at, like, realistically, and this is the last thing we'll say about Pulisic. Obviously, he's so marketable. I mean, you look at the amount of jerseys he sold stateside, and I mean, obviously, you know that Boehly and co are going to absolutely run with that. I mean, I don't think the pressure gets to him. I do think it's more so the injuries than anything else, because, like, realistically, if you're thinking about it, when you look at, say, Havertz, Mount, and then Timo Werner, Pulisic must be looking at that Werner one and going, that should be my spot, because he's
well, especially when you spend the most of your time in the treatment room, you know what I mean? It's like everyone else is flying out there. The club was flying last season. You were flying up till Christmas, and this guy's sitting on the injury table looking at all these guys doing the absolute business. It was an exciting time for Chelsea, European champions, world champions, Tuchel in there in his first full season and all that kind of thing. Everything was to be excited about. And this guy's sitting on an injury bed, probably messing around with bands and, you know, getting rubbed down and getting treatment and all that kind of stuff, going, this is pissing me off. And no one, you can't understand how the mental fatigue of that comes on to the physical side of your things as well. Like the mental side of that can trigger that so much.
Of course.
Even to the point where even if you pick up a knock that you'd normally run off, straight away you think, oh, it's an Achilles or it's an ACL, where it might be just a knock.
You know what? It's a really good point you make there. There's a show that I listened to, which I've told you about before. It's with the singer from Iron Maiden. It's called Psycho Schizo Espresso, and it's all about psychology. It's him and a qualified psychologist, and they actually had a show a few months back where they had, you'd probably remember his name. It was actually the sports psychologist that done a lot of work for Liverpool when Daniel Sturridge was going through his injuries. Yeah. And he's a pain psychologist. And he said, like, you'll actually be surprised, 90% of athletes, the pain is here. And he goes, and that was what we found with Daniel Sturridge. And that's why he was saying when Klopp was coming out saying he thinks he's only 10% fit, but he's actually 100% fit. So like, it's a really good point that you bring up there. So they're playing within their own.
I say within my own lads down here in the under 19s, lads will go in on a tackle and stuff like that, and they'll get up and it'll be, oh, take me off. And I go, no, just jog it off there a bit. Because if you were really injured, you'd be on the ground and you wouldn't be saying, take me off.
You'd know.
And like sometimes they just think that a knock and they can run it off or walk it off. They think a hamstring is gone. Or like I had a guy one time in a game, he came off, he said he did his hamstring, he pulled up. And like 5 minutes later, he was playing 1-2s on the sideline with another guy. And I'm going, do you understand if you pulled your hamstring, you wouldn't be standing up?
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
And that's what I said. And once I explained that to him, then he understood. And then it's like, there's a huge difference between picking up a knock and actually picking up a physical injury. You know what I mean? It's a totally different ballgame. And that's part of the problem. And it could be part of the problem with Christian as well, you know?
Yeah. And hopefully he kind of spends the summer now and really kind of gets into it. I think there's going to be a lot riding on him, a lot invested in him as well, if he's going to be the poster boy for American soccer, which he is already. But if he really wants
he's the guy, he's going to be throwing out the first baseball and all at the games and all.
You know what I mean?
He's going to be that guy.
Yeah. So he needs to be, you know, he's going to be singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and so it needs to be. But one last point that we won't spend long on this. I wrote Loftus-Cheek continues to go strength to strength. Very interesting with Loftus-Cheek. It's almost been like a little personal project with another player that we're talking about who injuries has kind of ruined in his career in some ways. We saw how well he played under Sarri. Got 10 goals that year, actually, because he's not known for his goals. A player that really seems to be stepping up with Tuchel. Tuchel wants him to have more aggression in there and not be afraid, you know, play within himself, because Jesus Christ almighty, when he goes, like when he gets the ball and he takes it forward, nobody will tackle him because he's a big Anthony Joshua looking fucker. He's 6'3", he's built like a brick house. He has enough pace, you know, to get past people, but it's not the pace, it's actually the skill. It's how the ball sticks to his feet. He's actually a very unique talent. He's almost kind of what Paul Pogba should be, really, when he's running like that, isn't he? Very difficult player to play against and mark when he's on form, and it seems to be like a little pet project with Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah, I think the mental aspect of it that Tuchel played the card on, and we spoke about it a few weeks ago in an episode, was like, he came out and he says, I want to see the Loftus-Cheek that I see in training in a match.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very clever way of motivating him. Plus, I'm sure he's looked himself and he's gone, right, you've got Jorginho there and Kante and Kovacic, but there's a great opportunity for me here. This was that time you were carrying a few injuries. Got his opportunity, took his opportunity well. I just find with him, I find he's...
I think the words actually, Niall, apparently behind the scenes were that he wants him to be more of a bastard.
Hey, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And look, if that's the case, I mean, look, that's the history of your club, isn't it? That's what success is bred on. Guys who are hardened and up for the battle and stuff like that. You know, you see it in Reece and in Mason and guys like that as well. But I think with him as well, I think at times they probably need to do a little bit of work on his decision making and stuff like that. The physicality of his game is fine. I think it's when he arrives at that moment, he doesn't always make the right decision 9 times out of 10. But I look, he's a very impressive player, and he's not a player as a defender I'd like to be coming up against and stuff like that. He's a big boy. He's strong. He's aggressive. But
and at
I think so.
At 26 as well, that's a good age now for him to turn a corner, isn't it?
Well, this is his time. This is his time, because if it doesn't work at 26, then it ain't going to work. You're going to find yourself on loan somewhere again, or back in the Championship or something like that. You know what I mean? And it's just, you've had an opportunity to relaunch your career at Chelsea again. Top 4 club, European champions, world champions,
and your boyhood club. You know what I mean?
You have to take that opportunity, yeah. And I put him in that loop when we talk about those clicks with those Chelsea boys. Himself, Mount, Reece, those type of guys. He fits in there as well as one of those guys. And he's in terms of stature, he's everything that Chelsea tend to look for in a player, in terms of strength, physicality, all that kind of thing. And I think if Thomas can just, fine-tune that kind of diamond bit at the end, that final third stuff, I think you'll have a hell of a baller.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I would say for someone like him, look at someone like Naby Keita. And, when people thought that wasn't going to work out when it was over, it's something about the German managers. They have these players that they see it in them, don't they? And they go, I'm not giving up on you, son. Just fucking stick with me and listen to me, and you'll be there.
Well, see, their underlying thinking is you're never too old to learn. You know what I mean? Whereas if you think of most players when they get to 26, you would think, look, you either have this down now or you don't. But I think with the German managers, with the likes of Klopp and Tuchel and stuff like that, they look at it and they think, I'd imagine Nagelsmann teaches Muller still things about football at Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a trait that runs through them, you know what I mean? And I think Loftus-Cheek at 26, I think Tuchel probably looks at him and thinks like he's still 21 and still a child on a project for him. And I'm sure Loftus will react to that as well. You know what I mean? It's only good things for Loftus-Cheek in the future.
Well, there's only one place to finish up, second part of the show, if you will. It's the Todd Boehly era has begun. In attendance with the consortium, as we mentioned, he was there with his fellow LA Dodgers owner, Mark Walter. I think the billionaire, the other Swiss billionaire who doesn't really have an interest in football, he's just there for some reason. He's about 90. Hans-Björg Wyss, and there was a couple of the guys as well from Clear Lake Capital as well, which is, they're a big source of the income here, and they're 60% owners as well. So
I'm sure they're all settling into their directors' boxes. Nicely.
Yeah, they looked very comfortable there. It was a very, like I said, a very different approach to Roman sitting there, sitting forward and always kind of looking humble. Whereas like this guy is like, let's do this. Let's do it like Americans. It
was like the Reservoir Dogs had arrived or something.
It was great, wasn't it? It was great. I got a great satisfaction out of it, I have to say. I was watching the match and it gave me a sense of comfort. Even that after the game, I was like, this is a new era. And I've liked this guy for a long time, Niall, and I know you have a little few bits there that you want to go through. Why don't you give Chelsea fans that may not know certain things a little bit of a background on Todd Boehly and how serious a businessman this guy actually is? You can give us the short version if you will, but why don't you go down through it? Because as I said, you've done a great show. If anyone wants to watch Niall's show, go and check it out. You've done it under the Shankly Sessions on the upper tier, but
on the upper tier, just the upper tier,
just the upper tier. Sorry, my apologies.
No, I've been.
You've been impressed with this guy, really, haven't you? From like reading about him, like.
Well, I've been even more impressed since I did that show, because I kind of skated over it a little bit and just touched the top end of it, really. But when I delved down into it this time, and you see that the brands that he's involved in and the brands that he's responsible for and the stuff, and look, no one becomes a multi-billionaire by accident. You know what I mean? It's hard graft, it's dedication. It's
unless it's Russian. Sorry, we just have to.
Look, someone had to work to generate that money somewhere. It doesn't just happen. But I think the thing I looked into it was I wanted to understand really, how invested he is in terms of sports. And he kind of answered that for me on Saturday with the VAR thing. And then even when the full whistle went, when Wolves had scored the equaliser, he got up and stomped off. He was pissed off. You know what I mean? And I kind of like to see that in owners as well, that there's a vested interest, a vested interest, and it, it becomes personal and stuff like that. But when I went down and I looked through it, like there's brands that we would be familiar, brands that I'm very much familiar with anyway, that I didn't realize he was involved in. Like, I mean, he's involved in Chuck E. Cheese. When you've gone to Orlando, I've gone to Orlando, Chuck E. Cheese. I've brought the kids to it. They love it. It's unbelievable.
My belly knows all about it.
Exactly, you know what I mean? But then you look at things like he's involved, obviously everyone knows the LA Dodgers and stuff like that, but he's involved in DraftKings, this huge sort of...
He's also involved in the Lakers, by the way. I didn't know that. He's actually, they have him and that company have shares in the Lakers too, which is surprising.
Yeah. Well, I presume looking at that connection with the Los Angeles Sparks as well.
Yeah.
I wonder if that operates maybe as a feeder to it and stuff
possibly
like that as well, potentially.
Yeah.
I didn't delve that far into it. But then I looked at his what I was really intrigued about was the span of business that he's involved in. So he's involved in life assurance, real estate, technology, food, sports, media, entertainment.
The Hollywood Reporter, I believe, is his baby.
The Hollywood Reporter, Rolling Stone magazine, Variety, Billboard, all this kind of stuff. There's all these brands that are out there that people wouldn't realize. But what I did look at is when you look at the span of business he's involved in, all of them really successful. All of them in the billions and billions and billions. You know what I mean? It sort of puts together this package of, and I spoke about on the show, of like a franchise that we speak about, and how football clubs, as we know it, because we're in the traditional sense of football clubs, have now become these huge global conglomerate franchises. You see it now, even like you see where Peacock is covering the football over in the UK and all. And you see that they bring in all the fan bases, like the Chelsea supporters club from Minneapolis or wherever it is, and they post these pictures and all that kind of stuff. So you can see how far reaching the clubs are now, especially at the top end of the Premier League, the biggest league in the world, by far the biggest attraction, the most money, and only going to grow and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can see he brings an awful lot to it. So he's involved in sports. He's involved in food. He's involved in media.
And by the way, DraftKings is his actual thing.
That's his fantasy sports company. Yeah, and if any of your listeners are UFC fans, they would know what DraftKings is. And DraftKings has moved into every facet of sport.
Like NFL
used to be they were a massive sponsor of the Joe Rogan podcast for years when they first started out and stuff like that and all. So absolutely massive. But you can see he kind of ticks all the boxes in terms of developing your club into this huge franchise and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And I know sometimes when we use that word franchise and becoming that, it doesn't sit well with old school fans. It doesn't sit well necessarily with football fans, because you don't think of your club as being a brand. You think it as being part of your life. But then
your local club for a lot of the English people, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Which is fair.
Yeah, but I suppose what it does is your club kind of dictates a lot as well, you know what I mean? Because, like for example, if your players are on ads and they're drinking Monster Energy, if the fans get influenced in drinking Monster Energy, they drink a certain type of beer if there's a beer associated with the club, or a whiskey or whatever it is. If the club is sponsored by Adidas or Puma or Nike, you tend to buy Adidas or Puma or Nike. You know what I mean? So like you're invested in this club on so many different levels. Without you even realizing. You just don't realize it. Like you think about
psychology. It's just ingrained.
That's what it is. And when you look at this guy and everything he's involved in, he covers a wide variety of everything that's associated with all that. And that's what I was most impressed with. From that point of view, that it's just I didn't realize on the surface when I scratched it, I thought, here's a guy who has a 20 or 30%, whatever it is, share in the LA Dodgers. So he's a US sports guy. But when you delve into it, there's so much more there. All of it looks like it's success. All of it turns over serious money. And I just thought that this was a landmark. I call this a landmark moment, not just for Chelsea Football Club, but for football in general when this happens. And I don't think a lot of football fans realize this, that when this evolves, like if you think about, and I spoke about on the episode, when you think about when Roman first came in and took over Chelsea and what that elevated football in the Premier League to, where everyone again had to step up, boom, boom, boom. It was a different world again. Then we've seen when City came in and that money came in with them, and everyone's had to step up, boom, 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 boom. Well, now this is another level now. This is another level coming in, another level of wealth, another level of investment, another level of stability because of the clause in the contract for the 10-year thing. So that stability is guaranteed there.
No dividends are allowed to be taken from the club, which people have called the anti-Glazier clause, which I think is a stroke of genius on Roman Abramovich's part.
But I think as well the fact that they signed up for it, because I think a lot of businessmen would look at that and think, well, that's a clause there that I'm not interested in, and most guys would walk away from that. Yeah. But that goes to show you where these guys' vision is in terms of where they want to bring Chelsea as a club and as a franchise, and that stability of 10 years there, where you guys don't have to. I wouldn't say don't have to worry about money, because they'll want you run as a business. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of your development, in terms of the development of Stamford Bridge and all the other facets that lead to the first team, because we've often said with clubs, when clubs are really, really successful, we've seen it with United. It starts right from the lowest level of your academy, all the way to your canteen staff, all the way to your medical and sports staff, all the way to your first team. And you'll find that the success all the way through that when it comes. And I think they're going to invest so much money in this. And I just think Chelsea, I'd say within 3 years, will probably be the benchmark in terms of football and what people have to do. We've seen the news coming out, of course, that Man City are going to sign Haaland, and that's huge, of course. And, people are turning around going, well, what are we all going to do now? Well, what we're all going to do is we're all just going to invest and step up again, which is what we're supposed to do. Yeah. We're not supposed to sit back and just let these guys run away with it. Yeah. United did it for years and no one reacted to it, and that's where we made the mistake.
It's been, but I think now being proactive, isn't it, and then reactive, and I think that's
But I mean, you look at the Premier League. The Premier League's going to be unnoticeable in the next 5 years. You're going to have the rise of Newcastle as a force back in football again. You guys are certainly going to get back on the wagon really, really quick, and also you're going to build from that so quick and stuff like that. And having Tuchel there as well. I mean, you've all the bones of success there. You just got turned on your head this year. You know what I mean? You just got to discount that. But I think you've City there. You've Liverpool back to where they should be and stuff like that. United will rise up again. Arsenal look like they're on a path to a bit of success. Spurs look like they're going to do some good things, stuff like that. So it's really going to be a really, really good league. Yeah, whether you like it or you don't.
I know. I'm doing that. You have to recognize it.
Yeah.
I'm doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just think in the next 3 years, I would see Chelsea being at the forefront of that. I would see Chelsea being at the forefront of player signings, where, the way Haaland has gone to City. I think in 3 years' time, if there's that type of player floating around, he won't just go to City. Chelsea will be in that discussion. Liverpool will have to step up to be in that discussion. And I think it'll be a different playing field. And I just think for Chelsea fans, it's going to be a real exciting time. I think it's going to be like the relaunch of the Abramovich era, but I described it as that with more stability and less political influence.
I mean, I don't think there was ever, I know what you mean by the political influence comment, as in like the UK government can't be kind of going, oh, well, what's this, what's that, and fans can't really use it to joy. But one thing that came out today across all the media kind of late this afternoon, because obviously Boehly has spoken out, and I know from talking to a lot of fans that were at the bridge on Saturday, he was taking photos literally with all the fans pre-game, which is amazing because you never saw Abramovich do that. You know what I mean? You would see the odd photo of Abramovich, but they were very private. They didn't really speak out. There wasn't really that level of communication from board level down to fan level. It was all just done very privately. And it was always quite frustrating, actually, as a fan, because we didn't know like who's doing what. Whereas I think this is all going to be very clear like capital, no pun intended. But I think this is all going to be very, very clear. There's going to be a level of communication, which was kind of agreed within the deal as well. There's going to be dialogue between the fans and the board. And Todd looks like a guy that is quite articulate, that will talk about it too. I guarantee it, as soon as this is all signed, sealed, and delivered, there'll be an interview. You know what I mean? Whereas we never got that with Abramovich. I couldn't even tell you how Abramovich sounds. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't even tell you what his voice is like. But
well, I mean, culturally, you're dealing with two different beasts. I mean, one is obviously a Russian guy. Russians tend to be very private about the way they go about their business, whereas Americans like to come in and fly the flag. We spoke about that like it was not like a US election thing,
100%, 100%.
But yeah, absolutely.
But he vowed to invest heavily in the squad this coming summer, and he told some fans, which were the ones that got the pictures taken, that big things are coming this season. So I mean, that's a big statement. So apparently we're not just going to get that, the two center backs. We'll probably talk about this on a different podcast, but obviously Koundé, and now we hear about Koulibaly being offered to Chelsea. I mean, I think there's your two replacements right there, if I'm just speaking out loud. And that statement signing that we're hearing about, you know what I mean? That's really what interests me. I don't think it's going to be the Declan Rices and all, not with the controversy that's come out about Rice today. I think he's going to have another year. But I mean, I think very interesting. When talking about statement signings, I mean, these boys aren't going to be afraid to, say, right, Lukaku, let's sell you to PSG or wherever the hell it is, Inter Milan, let's do this deal, that deal. But that kind of really is exciting if you're a Chelsea fan, isn't it? Because they're coming in saying, right, we are going to make statement signs this year. We're going to back the manager. We're going to, make sure that we create a stable squad over the next year at least, and then build from there, So it's exciting times.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's like nearly your club is nearly starting again with a somewhat clean canvas. But I think so long as Tuchel's at the forefront of that decision making, and so long as these guys don't come in and kind of do, like what you've seen probably at United, where they just brought Ronaldo back, but they needed a DM. But they bring Ronaldo in and Sancho in. You have to get the mix right and understand what you need. And I mean, Tuchel will be forceful enough in terms of that situation.
I'm gonna before we go, I'm just gonna clarify exactly where you're going with that, because we had a conversation on this the other night. The rumor mill, should I say, is doing the rounds at the moment that Neymar's name has been really mentioned a lot. That the thing about it is, right, Tuchel, I think, is the one that got the most out of Neymar, and they seem to have a good relationship or whatever. If that's the statement signing, and it's not just a statement signing for the sake of it, I'm not saying it is, I'm just using Neymar as an example. But if that's the signing that Tuchel wants because he believes that's what he needs to benefit the team, then you back the manager and you do that. Do you know what I mean? If he thinks, I'm just throwing his name out there, it could be anybody. But if that's the name that he thinks that he can get, and the border, Todd is going to go, right, boom, let's get it done.
Yeah. I think with those things, you probably have to be careful as well, because probably, why I said Tuchel at the forefront is because obviously when Boehly and guys like that look at these things, they've a number of things that they're juggling, where Tuchel's concern is the pitch. His concern is the team and the squad and the results. He doesn't care whether you sell 2 million jerseys or whether you sell 50 jerseys if you're a world-class player out on the pitch. And I think that's where you have to be really, really careful, because look, we've seen it with United. They brought in Falcao, they brought in Angel Di Maria, they brought in Ibrahimovic, they brought in all these players, and for a time it kind of worked, but then it fell apart big time and stuff like that, And I think with those things you need to be careful. And I think for me, I wouldn't be looking at someone like Neymar. I know that the attraction there of the brand Neymar and the fall down, the trickling down financially of all that kind of stuff as well. But I don't know. He comes across to me to be more of a headache than what he brings to the pitch.
Yeah, I just threw his name out there because I know him and Tuchel are pretty close, and I'm thinking that if you're Todd Boehly and you're like, right, well, you guys work together and you're pretty close. You know how to get the best out of him on the pitch. His brand is pretty big. I'm just using. Listen, I'm not advocating for Neymar. I'm not the biggest.
Look, the one thing I would say, look, on his day, he's
Neymar. So
look, on his day, he's a wonderful footballer. But how many on your days do you get?
And especially in the Premier League at that age.
Well, not only in the Premier League, but we've seen what's happened in clutch moments in big games where he just doesn't show up and goes missing and stuff like that. No,
well, there is a picture of Mbappe floating around visiting Cobham when he was very young, wearing his little number 9. So you know what I mean? Maybe we could throw a name in
that to me, that would be a different conversation. That would be something now. If I was a Chelsea fan,
that's a statement signing, right?
Now. That's a statement signing, and that's one that off pitch matches on pitch.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I mean that changes the game with the Haaland conversation as well, doesn't it? It puts it right up there. But no, look, we're dreaming here, and we're allowed to dream as Chelsea fans again. And isn't it nice to be able to dream as Chelsea fans again? We can get a little bit ahead of ourselves because at the end of the day, we've gone through a lot of shit over these last few months. Niall, you know, I'm all smiles on camera, but good Lord, this has been mentally draining because not only have you got your real life to deal with, but football matters to people like us and yourself. You know what I mean? It does. It matters to us. It's our Saturday. It's our escape from reality. And then when the reality is that your club has basically been sanctioned for, you know, a war that was started that we have nothing to do with, and essentially, you know, the UK government holding Chelsea responsible. You know, I apologize to the Ukrainian people, but good Lord, that's what it felt like. You know?
I often say to people, there's nowhere to hide in a lad's WhatsApp group when it comes to football.
Lord.
and listen, we're our own worst enemies when it comes to that thing, because when we go in hard, and it's just.
I've still got the scars all over me.
Yeah, but you have to be made of a certain metal to tolerate that kind of thing. And look, and it's you know, but like, yeah, I think so, and I think this move for Chelsea and the takeover and all, I think it's going to be good across the spectrum of football teams and stuff like that. Yeah, and I think other teams are just going to have to step up. But the one thing excited for you guys is you can go into any financial deal with any negotiation with any player, and it won't seem a stretch if the deal is right for the club and Tuchel wants it.
Yeah, because I think what we're looking at now, and Niall, you're a businessman, and I think that's where you're coming from. You're looking at the business side of it. A lot of fans kind of look at the deal and kind of go, oh, well, it doesn't make sense here or there. But you're looking at when you're talking about that 3 years of Chelsea kind of being up there as a benchmark, you're looking at what these guys, what their history is, what they know they'll get. They know they'll get a return in 10 years if they do it right. And you got to spend money to make money, right? And that's
no one invests 5 billion in a hobby.
No.
No. That's as easy as I can summarize it up. You know what I mean?
That's really it. But look, It's been a pleasure, my friend. Tell people as always where they can find you.
Yeah, we're the Upper Tier Out There channel on YouTube, so you can find us there. Obviously, subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. The Upper Tier Podcast at gmail.com if you want to contact us, at the _upper_tier on Twitter, and at Session Shankly on Twitter as well for the Liverpool side of things. Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music for the audios of the show, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, the Upper Tier Podcast. So you'll find us out there everywhere. We're accessible. You'll find us. If you want to come on the show, whatever you want to do, hit us up. There's room for everyone on this bus.
And why don't we make the announcement right now what we're going to be doing, because it is FA Cup final week. So why don't you tell them what we're going to be doing?
We're going to be doing a preview for the FA Cup final on Thursday, where myself and Ian are going to be on. I mean, if it's a Chelsea-Liverpool Cup final, it's obviously going to be myself and yourself on anyway. But my partner in crime on the Upper Tier, Darren, which most people would know as Dazzler or Mystic Mac from Beat the Bookie and the Premier League previews and all that good stuff, he's going to be hosting the show. And I'm sure myself and yourself, it will get heated at times, it will get interesting, but all in good jest, let's say.
Yeah, it might get heated. I don't know. I doubt it. I'll be just sitting there like that for most of the time.
Let's see how Tuesday and Wednesday's results go, first of all.
Yeah, we could get heated off the back of them results. Just because we're annoyed at our own clubs more so, and we'd probably be in agreement. But no, there's sure to be fireworks. Dazzler is a United fan, so he is going to be hosting. It's his first time ever hosting a show, so we'll be judging him. Yeah. And he's a Man United fan too. So
Yeah, so he doesn't really have a card in the game on this one, but he's always a protagonist of verbal violence, let's say.
Verbal violence is an understatement. Verbal assault.
Absolutely.
But no, it's been an absolute pleasure, Niall. Always great to have you on. You're always welcome on the Chelsea Roar. It's always a pleasure to have you. There's been great feedback from Chelsea fans, appreciating your non-biased outlook on football, which I also appreciate too. Do go and check out Niall over on the upper tier. I'm a frequent guest on the Monday mashup as well, which will be probably dropped by the time you see this, or thereabouts. So do go over and check that out. It's great fun. It's just a few lads absolutely having the crack, taking the piss. A lot of times having a few beers, whiskeys in some cases with some of the lads. And it's great fun, and it's real football talk from real football fans. You can have that one for free. But until next time, for me, your host, Ian Kelly, for Niall Hogan, this has been your Chelsea Roar. Up the Chelsea. And until next time, we'll catch you on the flip side.